more minute because I still see people coming in. Okay, I think we can start. So again, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ewa Kocińska-Lange, and together with, first of all, my team at NCBR office in Brussels, so National Center for Research and Development, the Polish RNA funding agency, but also with our colleagues from Lithuanian, Slovenian, and Hungarian offices. We are very happy to organize a series of different events for you. And today we are meeting to discuss a very important topic related with a white paper that was recently published by the Commission, and it's dealing with research and development and technologies with dual use potential. So we will discuss this in detail with Marco, our guest from the European Commission. And for most of you, I think you are aware that this is a second event of the series dealing with a more broad topic of European economic security package. So we already discussed last Thursday a bit about research security, and today we are going to talk about dual use. For the technical things, this is Teams. So if you have a question, please just write us in the chat or raise your hand. And this 1 hour is mostly about questions, so we will be very happy to receive your questions, as many as possible. And traditionally, I will say just a very short intro in Polish, and then give the floor to our colleagues. Dzień dobry Państwu. Cieszę się, że są Państwo dzisiaj z nami na webinarze dotyczącym technologii podwójnego zastosowania. Mam nadzieję, że te informacje będą przydatne. Zapraszamy do kontaktu z nami w razie dodatkowych pytań. So now the floor is yours, Tadas.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Eva. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tadas Tumėnas from Lithuanian R&D Liaison Office in Brussels. And now let me switch to Lithuanian. Sveikinu Jūs visus prisijungusius prie Lino biuro ir partnerio rengiamo nuotolinio seminaro, kuriame šiandien kalbėsime apie naujausią komisijos iniciatyvą dėl galimybės didinti paramą moksliniams tyrimams ir eksperimentiniai plėtrai susijusiai su dvejopo naudojimo technologijomis. Būtent dėl šio klausimo komisija yra paskelbusi šiuo metu viešasias konsultacijas, kurios truks iki šių metų balandžio 30, todėl kviečiu visus būtinai juose sudalyvauti. O šiandien linkiu įdomios diskusijos ir pasinaudokite progą užduoti jūs dominančius klausimus. Dėkui. Now I'm switching back to English and giving the floor to my colleague from Hungary, Orsolya. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tadas. My name is Orsolya Lugmaier, and I represent two Hungarian universities, Eötvös Loránd University and Corvinus University from Budapest. I'm really happy to welcome you here. I hope you find this event interesting and useful. And I'm switching to Hungarian. Szeretettel üdvözöljük Önöket. Én Lugmaier Orsolya vagyok, és az Eötvös Loránd Tudományegyetemet, valamint a Corvinus Egyetemet képviselem Brüsszelben. Reméljük, hogy érdekesnek és hasznosnak találják az előadásokat. Ha bármilyen kérdésük van, kérjük, hogy a chatben tegyék fel. Now I'm back and switch to Bernard.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Bernard Moritz from the Slovenian Business and Research Association. I would like to welcome our Slovenian guests. I'm going to switch to Slovenian. Lepo pozdravljeni in dobrodošli vsi skupaj. Nas veseli, da ste se tudi danes nam pridružili na današnjem dogodku in upamo, da boste ponovno izvedeli veliko koristnih informacij. Če imate kakršenkoli vprašanje, ga lahko ponovno pišete v klepet, kot tudi po dogodku na elektronski naslov SBRA in bomo z veseljem pomagali. Thank you very much. I would like to pass on now to my colleague from Hungary, to Agota, for the last introduction.
Thank you very much, Bernard. So my name is Agota Dávid, and I'm representing the National Research Development and Innovation Office of Hungary in this group of organizers. Very shortly in Hungarian, Én is mindenkit hadd üdvözöljek szeretettel, és nagyon reméljük, hogy minél többen részt tudnak venni ezen a mai eseményen. Majd be fogjuk jelenteni, hamarosan szervezünk egy következő eseményt is egy teljesen más témában, úgyhogy csak figyeljék a hírleveleinket. So thank you very much, colleagues, for joining us today. We are already above 100 participants, so this shows the great interest in the topic, which will be about the dual-use potential of research and innovation. And our distinguished speaker today is Marco Grancagnolo, who is a policy coordinator for the global approach to research and innovation, and also advisor for Cristina Russo, who is director for international cooperation at DG RTD. And he's a real expert in the field, so I immediately give him the floor. He will make his presentation with slides that will be shared after the meeting. And you can also raise your questions, please, via the chat after Marco finished his presentation. So colleagues, please put your questions into the chat. And I give you the floor now. Thank you, Marco, for being here with us today.
Thank you, Agata. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm very pleased to be here with you. I also see over 100 people in this chat. It's incredible. I'm very, very pleased, and congratulations to the organizers for this successful event. In short, I will present you the white paper on enhancing research and development support for technologies with dual-use potential, and I have some slides that I will try to share with you in a second. Let me also give you a general introduction on the work that we've been doing on economic security since the publication of the economic security strategy in June 2023. The overall assumption that underpins the strategy is that our societies are exposed to risks and vulnerabilities more than ever before. Our security is deeply intertwined with our ability to be resilient to external shocks and to reduce the risk deriving from excessive dependencies. So the EU has actually benefited, as the whole world as such, from a global economic integration. And as such, it remains committed to promote an open and rule-based multilateralism. However, given the risks that the European economic face, for example, in terms of supply chain dependencies or economic coercion, the EU has established a framework in order to safeguard its economic security. And this goes around three pillars: the promoting, protecting, and partnering. So these three key words stands for promoting the EU competitiveness and growth, protecting the EU economic security, and partnering with countries worldwide who share our concerns on economic security. And in all these three priorities, research and innovation have a crucial role to play. Horizon Europe, in fact, invests billions of euros in technologies that drive the twin transition towards a competitive, fair, and green Europe. And we have safeguards in place to boost research security in Horizon Europe and to tackle risks such as those related to technology leakage. And we are also collaborating as open as possible and as close as necessary. We are open to partners worldwide, including through the associations and science and technology agreements. At the same time, we close when such collaboration is not in our interest. And in fact, this approach is very much in line with the global approach to research and innovation, which is the EU strategy for international cooperation in research and innovation. This has been a front runner in identifying the need to preserve openness in international cooperation while promoting a level playing field and reciprocity underpinned by fundamental values and principles. And speaking of fundamental values and principles, you're probably aware that just at the end of February, ministers from over 50 countries, including all EU member states, gathered in Brussels for the International Ministerial Conference on the Multilateral Dialogue on Values and Principles for International Cooperation in Research and Innovation. And they endorsed the Brussels statement, which calls for continuing this dialogue and making it sustainable. So all this to stress that the economic security strategy comes in a context that was already well identified in the Commission at the time of the global approach in May 2021, but of course takes into account the very difficult geopolitical context in which we are all in after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Going back to the strategy, there is another important element that I want to underline, and let me go to the next slide. Is that the economic security strategy was actually brought forward. It brought forward, first of all, a Commission recommendation on October 2023, identifying 10 technology areas which are critical for EU economic security. And since then, joint risk assessments have been carried out by the Commission together with the member states on areas such as advancing semiconductor technologies, artificial intelligence, quantum technologies, and biotechnologies. And on the 24th of January, the Commission put forward 5 other initiatives in areas related to trade and research, aiming at strengthening the EU economic security. And this was all covered under a chapeau communication on advancing European economic security. Let me just briefly stress that in particular this communication acknowledge the progress made to boost research security in Horizon Europe. And we named this the Horizon Europe safeguards, which were already in place at the time of the adoption of the Horizon Europe regulation. And here by the safeguards, we're referring to the possibility to restrict the participation of entities established in third countries or owned or controlled by third countries to projects in Horizon Europe where the security autonomy of the European Union is at stake. So this is also another element to underline the fact that Horizon Europe was already equipped with instruments to assertively safeguard its strategic interest. And so this is also acknowledged in the communication. There are also other safeguards. Let me just refer here to the system for monitoring the transfer of ownership of results to non-associated third countries, as well as specific investment safeguards under the European Innovation Council. As part of this package, so I said that there are 5 initiatives. 3 of them are under the remit of DG Trade, and 2 come from DG Research and Innovation. The first one is the white paper, which we will go and dwell in more details. And the second one is the proposal for Council recommendation on enhancing research security, which you have already presented in this format, if I'm not mistaken, last week. So on the white paper, let me provide you some further details here. So first of all, I refer to the 3 priorities of the economic security strategy, and the white paper fits into the promote dimension of the strategy. In fact, the starting point is that many of the technologies that are critical for the economic security actually do have a dual use potential. So they are actually underpinning, they are relevant for many fields in both civil and defense domains. And we need to maintain and grow a competitive edge on these technologies, because this is actually in our own economic security and strategic autonomy interest. This actually was already acknowledged in the communication on the economic security strategy of June 2023, where indeed the text states that the Commission will report on options to ensure adequate, strategically targeted support for dual-use technology development after reviewing the scope of existing instruments. And similarly, in the end of November 2023, it was President von der Leyen herself announcing the need to set out options on dual-use research in a white paper. So the work that has been done started from the consideration that results of projects could develop technologies with dual use potential. So this happens already, and this can actually mean that certain results could immediately, or with minor or adaptations, or in some cases with substantial adaptations, transfer from civil to defense applications. However, in the current legislative framework, there is a strict separation in terms of funding for civil or defense research and development activities. In fact, Horizon Europe, and here when I talk about Horizon Europe, I'm referring to the specific program of Horizon Europe and the European Institute for Innovation and Technology. They have an exclusive focus on civil applications. When we look at the European Defence Fund, the European Defence Fund has a window dedicated to defense research, which is actually legally anchored in the Horizon Europe regulation, and has an exclusive focus on defense applications. So we are, as a matter of fact, a situation where there is no dual use by design element. Projects can be financed at the origins for exclusively for civil applications under Horizon Europe, or for exclusively defense applications under the EDF. But this debate is not new. So we actually are already aware that during the negotiations on Horizon Europe, the questions on support to dual use emerged already on the basis of the fact that the Commission proposal had a focus. The Commission proposal for Horizon Europe had a focus on civil applications, but not exclusive. So this was actually the result of the interinstitutional negotiations, which there was a clear decision from the co-legislator to clarify that the focus of projects financed under Horizon Europe should have an exclusive focus on civil applications. Now, what does that mean in practice? As I said, results of projects can have a dual use applications most of the time. However, what it means is that Horizon Europe finances projects only that only either for applications that are civil exclusively. So then the results of project could have potentially a dual use application, but the focus at the moment of the financing decision is on whether the initiative is aimed for exclusive focus or not. That results basically in a situation where potentially projects that could have interesting results may not be financed under Horizon Europe because of their dual use potential. So another difficulty that has been emerging in the analysis of the current legislative framework is that there is a lack of common definition of dual use, especially in the context of research and innovation, research and development support. It is very different when we're talking about technologies that are still to be developed using financing through research and development support. And that's very different from the list of export control items that are dual use, because in that case, we are really identifying those items in the context of the export control regulation. The fact of having a lack of definition of dual use hampers the possibility to have joint investments, in particular with institutions, other financial institutions, such as the European Investment Bank, which actually does invest in dual use technologies under specific conditions. So there is a need to harmonize the approach across European institutions and as well between EU and member states level in order to be better able to capture the potential that exists of technologies that can be developed for one specific applications in mind, but that they may have significant benefits also for the other dimension. So how to overcome the question of improving the relations between civil and defense research and development. The Commission in the white paper sets out 3 possible options, which are focusing on one important distinction is what is currently the situation, and so can we do better under the current legislative framework, and this is under option 1. So basically the intention here is to maintain the exclusive focus on civil or defense applications, because this is well established, stakeholders are familiar with this approach, and try to work on incremental improvements through which we could foster synergies between the Horizon Europe and the EDF programs and improve cross-fertilization. Option 2 would actually be requiring basically a different setting because it would imply a change in the legal basis. By the way, let me stress here that the intention is not to make any changes to the current legislative framework, but to potentially prepare the ground for the future framework program. So under the option B, we looked at the possibility to removing the exclusive focus on civil applications, but only in selected parts of the program, the successor program to Horizon Europe. As I said before, the fact of having the exclusive focus has an implication in the financing decision. So one possibility could be to remove the exclusive focus and maintain a focus on civil applications, which would be for selected parts of the program. So this would allow strategic technologies to be financed independently of the field of applications, even though there would be still a focus on civil applications, but at least it would remove the exclusivity. So there would be a possibility to consider technologies that have a civil application, but could potentially go beyond that. It's also important in this option that support to technologies the support to technology with dual use is made independent on the field of applications only in selected parts. At the same time, other parts of the framework program would maintain the exclusive focus on civil applications. The third option is more specific. It goes beyond the option 2. And the intention here is to create a dedicated mechanism that would finance research and development with dual use potential. So the focus would be on technologies with dual use potential. Let me just highlight the difference between option 2 and 3, if it is not yet very clear. Option 2 maintains a focus on civil applications, although it removes the exclusivity. In option 3, we would be creating a mechanism with a focus on technologies with dual use potential. Of course, this would mean also that such instruments would have its own dedicated budget, its own rules for procedures, and would certainly increase the visibility of dual-use technologies. While at the same time, it would allow to make a clear separation between what would be dual use and what would remain exclusively focused on either civil or defense applications. So just before concluding and opening the floor for questions, let me just reiterate that the text, the white paper opens a discussion. It's the beginning of a process of consultation, which is running until the 30th of April 2024. So at this stage, the Commission is not taking any decision. We are simply opening the floor for ideas, for comments, for feedback from the stakeholders, and we would very much recommend you and your organizations to participate to the public consultation and to provide your feedback in writing. This will inform the Commission's next steps and will certainly be taken into account when the Commission will devise its preparation for the proposals that will form the new framework program beyond 2027. With this, I would give the floor back to Agota, I guess, for the questions and answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Marco. It was very clear, but I'm sure there are still some questions remained in the audience. So I really encourage everybody to type your questions into the chat. If you prefer talking, you can also raise your hand. Yes, I just see that my colleague also asked you to do so. I can already ask some first questions. So you mentioned at the very beginning this partnering perspective, that you are still very open for international cooperation, especially with the partner countries or like-minded countries. You also mentioned the multilateral dialogue. So can you see in a way a place in the multilateral dialogue to discuss also this dual-use perspective with a certain number of countries, or do you see another forum where we could also discuss this topic with our partners?
Thank you very much, Agata, for the question. Let's I think take one step at a time, because for us the question is really almost institutional, in the sense that we need to understand from our own perspective how do we use public funds for financing dual use. So that is actually the fundamental question we're trying to tackle here, is what is the best way to improve cross-fertilization between defense and civil industries, because it's clear that there are technologies that are, by their own nature, by their flexibility, versatility, they can switch from one side to the other very easily. And there are examples, there are plenty of examples. And we actually also acknowledge that some of these technologies will, for instance, that developed under the defense domain, have brought major benefits for the society as such. I mean, one of the typical example that is used is the one of the seat belts, which was developed in the context of airplanes in the military context. But if we would estimate the number of lives saved by the use of seat belts in the economy, that would certainly be a very significant spillover effect that it's beneficial for the society as a whole. Now, of course, the question is, how can we make sure that technologies that are currently being developed, that have a huge potential, also in terms of spillovers, and we're talking, as I mentioned a few before, artificial intelligence or semiconductors, how can this be prevented to be used in a way that is harmful or misused against our own interest. And so in that case, I think we certainly need a framework where we could discuss the ethical use of certain technologies in international level. And potentially the multilateral dialogue could be one of these settings. There are also others, especially under the UNESCO, for instance. But I think there is a need to have a clear understanding on the how we want to use these technologies, what are the risks, and how we can prevent these risks to materialize. And I'm pretty sure that on this, we need to cooperate with other countries as well, which, as I said, share the same interests.
Thank you. By the way, I remember when you first announced this white paper, Marco, I really had to listen twice because I think we have this really intention or this memory that dual use is something negative because we have to avoid it. And then when you said that now we want to encourage it, it was something completely new. And I also very much liked in the paper, by the way, exactly what you mentioned now, that it's not only dual use doesn't only mean that we use something meant for civic use, for the military, but also the other way around, so that we can also take advantage of the very, very high level technology which is used in the military. In the meantime, luckily, we have quite a number of questions coming from the floor. So the first one was about option 3. And if there is this new instrument developed, then how far would it be funded? So would it mainly take funds away from Horizon Europe? And then would funds for civic application be used to finance option 3?
Thanks a lot for this question. Let me just first say that it's in any case too early to speak about funding and budget because all this discussion will eventually take place in the context of the next multi-annual financial framework. So there will be further decisions need to be taken before we can actually define this in detail. So at the moment, it's certainly too early. Also in light of the fact that we still need to assess what the actual options, the favorite option would be on the basis of the stakeholder consultation. And one last, let's say, caveat, if I may, in reply to this question, is also the fact that we should also not lose sight of the legal obligations that derive from the treaty that provides that all research and innovation activities should come from a single multi-annual framework program. And this is actually the reason why also the defense research, so the window of EDF, the European Defense Fund, that finance research is actually anchored in the Horizon Europe framework. So this is just to say that most likely the possibility that we would be exploring under option 3 would not be a separate instrument outside the existing Horizon Europe or eventually defense research part. So this is, I think, partially reply to the question. I'm just looking at it. Whether there would be field specifically or it would be a level of basic research. This is also, again, too early because to a certain extent we need to make clear distinction with technology from technology to technology and also between low and high TRL. So there won't be a one size fit all thing, everything goes into one single basket. On the other hand, it's true that probably we will need to be able to identify areas where this dual use would be relevant, also in order to avoid a situation of potentially duplication between the civil part that has an exclusive focus on civil and the dual use part, or the part that is exclusively in defense. So there will be some further thinking, certainly, in order to avoid that.
Then after the Horizon perspective, somebody asked about how option 2 or 3, even if they are different, but they are more related to Horizon, then how would this affect the the defense fund, sorry. Because it's not really in this picture.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So how would this option 2, so which is a change of focus in Horizon Europe, or the option 3, which is a separate program, in a way change what is the defense fund is funding or doing at the moment? So how these options would affect the functioning of the defense fund?
I see. Thanks for clarifying. The paper actually stressed quite clearly that in all three options, the defense research would still be with an exclusive focus on defense applications. So we won't be, let's say, changing the specific part related to defense. So we would be mostly focusing on the horizon, the future horizon part, and see to what extent certain openings could be made in order to promote the cross-fertilization between the two programs.
Thank you. You even mentioned, I think, at one of your examples that at the moment, because Horizon Europe is only a civic program, that during the evaluation, the dual use might be in a way excluding factor, and this is now the next question. So how this dual use application would change the evaluation criteria? So I can imagine the question is that would that be then an added value, or how would this work in terms of evaluation?
Again, it probably goes into a level of details that it's far beyond in terms of evaluation. So we are not saying that there will be a criteria or changing the eligibility criteria. Most likely, the eligibility criteria will be the same. What we are actually thinking is how can a participant from industry, from defense industry, for instance, be able to participate in a project under Horizon Europe without having having to face a risk of the project being dismissed because it has a dual use potential. So I think the logic is really on trying to be open to new category of newcomers, if you want to say, to use it this way, that are already investing heavily in research, even if in defense related projects, and whether their participation could boost the spillover effects of certain technologies, both for civil and defense applications.
So it would not definitely be an added value, but it's also not. It would keep these projects also eligible and fundable, also under the framework program at the moment.
Yeah, I think in terms of criteria, the general criteria would remain the same, of excellence, added value of whatever. Sorry, meaning the real objective would be in order to try to increase the participation of industry stakeholders in the framework program.
Then there was a follow-up question on this option 3, that what would be the volume or the order of magnitude, but I think you more or less mentioned that it's still too early to think about the size and the funding for this new instrument, but if you already can say something about it.
No, exactly. I mean, it's not the option. At the moment, at this stage, we're not looking into the division of budget among different parts of the program. We're just thinking in terms of should this be done in the first place, and if so, how should it look like? And then, in the case, once we have clarity, we will certainly also carry out specific analysis in terms of impact assessments in line with the better regulation guidelines before making the proposal. So all these are ideas that would nurture the further thinking, but at the moment there is no decision, no discussion actually on the level of budget.
You already started to respond to this topic on basic research, but I think it also asks if there would be this separate instrument, and would there be some fields of research that would be only and exclusively present in this new instrument? Does it mean that the solely civic applications under these topics would not be financed anymore? But as far as I understood you, this doesn't mean this, so we would keep everything also under Horizon, but then there would be in the other program an option for these dual use applications. But correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're totally right. I think that it's also very, very important to understand that in all the options foreseen, the exclusive focus on civil applications would remain in all three cases. And the part that would be on exclusive focus would still be very important. I mean, if we think about the fundamental research, for instance, most likely this would still remain to be fully with exclusive focus on civil applications. So it would mainly, we need also to maintain the sight of what the overall objective is as well, in terms of being able to lead on certain technologies that could create certain economic security issues. So we will need to be able to be independent, autonomous rather than independent, in exploiting certain technologies without having to necessarily rely on partners that could potentially misuse those technologies. So that's where the link with the research security aspect is also made, because obviously we're not talking about all possible technologies, but mainly those that are particularly critical and that could be misused by third countries, and it's there where the possibility of cross-fertilizing knowledge and expertise from the civil and defense industry could be beneficial for the EU as a whole.
Now there is a follow-up question to my comment that I'm happy about this other way around fertilization, and the question is, how can we better stimulate uptake from defense research in civil applications? So usually we still think about dual use as the other way around, but then how can we encourage this way of uptake?
It's absolutely a fundamental question, because at the end of the day, if you want, in the debate that we are also doing in the Commission in the EU in general on knowledge valorization, this aspect is crucial. So actually, at the end of the day, it's trying to hopefully manage to exploit certain technologies that exist either in the defense or in research, but for the EU interest as such. So, for instance, the possibility to stimulate the uptake of defense research in civil applications is certainly part of this, could be part of these projects financed under dual use, because we would need to have the experience and the knowledge acquired by the defense sector, and then try to spill over the results obtained under defense research for civil applications. And how this can be done, certainly it needs to make sure that research, the two worlds communicate to each other and not stand strictly separated as it is currently the case.
I fully agree with you. There is now a fourth option recommended in the chat, that what if the defense fund would remove its exclusivity and then would open towards civil solutions. So have you thought about that?
Yes, we thought about that, and the defense industry is very specific, and in terms also of the way topics are prepared for dual use for defense applications are very specific. Most of the time, in fact, actually they are directly financed by government for under public procurement. So the rules of the games under the European Defence Fund would be significantly different. So it would make it much more complicated to have to remove the exclusive focus from the European Defence Fund. And also another reason is the fact that if we envisage the removal of the exclusive focus from one program, it's better not to do it in both programs in order, again, to avoid duplications that could potentially emerge.
Yes, this is clear. I also read about the cultural change, especially in certain universities, which are not allowed to use these dual-use applications. And I'm sure you have already received such questions from the stakeholders. So how do you see this, how this cultural change can take place, and how will these stakeholders be supported in this change?
It's a very, very important question, and by the way, this has been in the specialized press as well. There are many articles mentioning this problem. It is one of the reasons why we want to hear from the stakeholders, because we want to test also the willingness of the stakeholders to eventually make this this change, cultural change you refer to. What I was, this may be just a personal opinion here, but what I was positively surprised was the fact that the overwhelming reaction from the stakeholders so far has been one of openness to consider this. So even knowing the difficulties in the fact that certain universities may have certain restrictions that would make it not feasible for them to participate in dual-use projects, nonetheless, the echo we heard so far has been one of openness to change, and this is something that we would like to see reflected in the feedback from the stakeholders.
That's very useful to hear. I think there must be many stakeholders who are affected by this issue. Then there is this question about the option 2. So if there will be more such topics which might then exclude the third countries, so how would this affect third or even associated countries? I think this might come from associated countries, this question.
It's also an important question. This also, it's said in the white paper itself, it would require specific further analysis, so that we are aware that any risks are mitigated, managed, so that there are no further risks. Now, this does not mean necessarily to close down all topics that have, technologies with dual-use potential, but certainly would require a specific analysis, possibly topic by topic. In any case, I would expect in many cases associated countries to be still part of the development of certain technologies, and will also be the case possibly with some key like-minded partners. But it's, again, a question that will need to be further analyzed and possibly discussed on a case by case.
Yes, and I think there is a follow-up question to the combination of these two questions. So how far then these changes would affect the buy-in by these kind of universities which have these clauses, or third countries? But I think because you said that it would not change it would just be an addition. So all the possibilities would remain there, and this would be an addition. So I believe it would not really change the attraction of the framework program much.
Yes, quite the contrary, because what we expect is to maintain the attractiveness of the program to the current, let's say, stakeholders, and on top of it may offer certain additional options for some stakeholders that are currently excluded.
And then there is a question that was it not taken into consideration that we leave everything as it is, and then there would be an instrument that would rather follow up the results and then more or less use the results in one way or another by, let's say, an instrument of the EIC or something we already have, so that then this civil defense application would follow after the two programs, so Horizon or the Defense Fund.
I would fit this idea under the option 1. Because it would simply keep the status quo in terms of framework, a legal framework, while at the same time it would try to identify options for better improving synergies between the two programs. And the idea of you mentioned the follow-up funding program or even under the EAC or the deployment program, it could certainly be an interesting approach. This is not excluded in under the other options as well, of course. Such an option, such an instrument, let's say, it's purely theoretical, but it could indeed be useful to improve the market uptake of some of the technologies.
So under option 1, you can understand anything which doesn't really touch on the current legal setup.
Exactly. So basically, under option 1, you would keep the exclusive focus in terms of research. Now, when we are talking about the follow-up funding, it also questions whether this is about deployment. So maybe it's not specifically for research. So it could be something and go beyond it. But in terms of the setup of research funding, it would maintain the exclusive focus on civil for the entirety of the framework program under option 1.
We have a very specific question on drones, that these are usually defined as military equipment, and then it's not dual use, but the colleague who is asking this question, he says that if he understood it correctly, you are working on definitions also, so that this would also, the terminology would be then defined not only about dual use, but then also maybe some relevant other such topics which should be defined under this larger dual use.
Thanks for the question as well, because allows me to also further complete my previous answer. As I said, the definition of dual use is quite tricky. So we don't have to invent one on the spot, of course, but it needs to be discussed. It needs to be discussed, and actually, in the white paper, there is a reference to the fact that we would welcome the stakeholders themselves to come and give us ideas on potential building blocks for a possible definition of dual use in the context of research and development. I'm stressing this because it's quite important to get the understanding that we are talking about technologies that do not yet exist and that have a potential for dual use, which is different from, as I said before, dual use items identified in the export control regulation.
But then it's happening, thank you. And now I see a question. This is actually the last one on the list, and it's no, because now there is a new one. But it asks about what will happen after the consultation, which is an interesting question, and how far will you then also take into consideration what, for example, we talk about today, and I'm sure you hear similar questions many times about these the universities, the openness, also third country participation, etc. So how will this be taken into consideration after you finish the consultation? So will you then continue further the analysis of all these options, or what will be the next steps?
Indeed. touched on it already, but simply the idea would be, first of all, let's assess what is acceptable for the community. This is a first step. Then on that basis, we will, in any case, analyze the actual implications from various perspectives in the context of the impact assessment of the next framework program. So in there, we will go deeper also in terms of a potential impact, for instance, as was in your previous question, on the participation of associated countries, or in general on the restrictions to the participation of third countries in the future framework program. So these are part of the analysis that would need to be done, and of course it will need to be specific for this dual use part.
Yes, and you still have quite some time until the next MFF period, so I can imagine that this would also be discussed further in various fora. So, but it definitely, there will be some change, so we can be certain about that. There is one more question about a bit about the third countries, so that what would option 2 and 3 mean in terms of investments and cooperation with these third countries, for example, with Africa and this innovation agenda. So would that also have an implication on these cooperation activities with third countries?
I think this falls in the same category of questions related to the potential impact of this of the chosen option to the third country participation. And as I said, it's not a given that there will be automatically exclusion. Actually, there may be interest from our own perspective to cooperate with partners that have an important role, that have certain leading capacity, or from which we can learn from. So certainly it's a delicate question, and again, it will need to be looked at on a case by case.
Case by case, yes, I fully agree with you. And I think we are really approaching the end of the hour. I also don't see any new questions, and I think this was already a lot of effort on your side, Marco, to respond to so many, so different questions. So thank you so much once again for your time and availability, because this is such a new topic that, as you can see, there are many questions popping up, and I'm sure that you can also use some of these when you continue your work on the analysis of the dual use applications. And now we only received the thank you messages, so also our audience is very thankful for your availability and time. And just a technical remark, so we will send out both then the slides, which we also thank you for you, Marco. And also we have recorded the event, so you will receive also a link. So we will send out the 2 links and the 2 presentations in one email to all the registered participants about the topic. And stay tuned, we will also come with a new topic very soon. So thank you very much for joining us today, colleagues. And once again, thank you, Marco.
Thank you to you, and thanks for the excellent organization.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a nice afternoon.